Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
Here we are. We're back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And here's the first question. What'd you do with all your extra time last night? A snappy 2 hours and 28 minutes was all it took for the Dodgers to win Game 1 of the World Series on a steamy night, and it was steamy in Southern California. Good morning, Golick.
Good morning. You're not kidding. That game flew by. It was hot, it was quick, and it was interesting, and in the end, it was a Dodger win. And by now, you've obviously seen the stats. 64% of the time, the team that takes Game 1 winds up winning the World Series. But the big story, of course, is Clayton Kershaw. It could be your big story. To me, I was talking with Hembo before the show, and listen, Kershaw was unbelievable.
Yeah.
To see a guy walk up into the batter's box and see his first pitch and swing at his first pitch and rope it out of the park, as Chris Taylor did, was just awesome. I mean, it was absolutely awesome. A leadoff home run on the first pitch Dallas Keuchel threw was out of the park. I thought that was incredible. I know we'll talk about, obviously, Clayton and what he did in the postseason, and that was obviously a monster thing. But, man, to be that guy, to be in a World Series and have your first at bat and just absolutely lace a home run on the first pitch was awesome.
Absolutely. And, there were a lot of stories last night. Yeah. I say Kershaw not just for the performance last night.
But he deserves the
generally speaking, this reminds me of Randy Johnson. And not because he's a big left-hander with a lot of hair, but because Randy Johnson, and people forget this now, and I think someday maybe we'll forget it with Kershaw too, is that for the longest time, the book on Johnson was that he couldn't pitch in the postseason. He was a big, dominating left-hander in the regular year and won all kinds of Cy Youngs and struck everybody out and everything else. Didn't have numbers quite as good as Kershaw, but awfully close. And no one has numbers as good as Kershaw. But he couldn't get it done in the playoffs. That was the narrative on Randy Johnson for years. And then he changed that by getting it done in the postseason. And that's exactly what Kershaw has done in these playoffs. Obviously, we'll lead with that. Let's go off the top here, Mike, and then we'll go a little more in depth into all of that. But it was the Dodgers taking a 3-1 win and a 1-0 lead in the World Series.
Yeah, these were all home runs. All the scoring, as I mentioned, Taylor hitting a home run, Bregman for the Houston Astros, and then Turner hitting a 2-run shot when it was 1-1. He made it a 3-1 game. Loved the dude's hair and the beard, by the way. Got that in the 6th inning, and then that game just moved along. The Houston Astros did not have a batter at the plate with a runner in scoring position. I mean, that's just mowing them down. I mean, it's just an incredible job out of not only Kershaw, but then he goes 7 innings, but then finishing up as well with the bullpen. Just a very, very efficient night.
Well, the Dodger bullpen has been ridiculously good in this postseason, and so has Justin Verlander, who will do the pitching tonight for the Astros as they try to dig out of this 1-0 hole. And look, Verlander's been as good as you can be in this postseason. He was ridiculously good against the Yankees, and they'll need him to be ridiculously good tonight.
Listen, since joining the Astros, all you need to know, he's 9-0, 1.23 ERA, 67 strikeouts, and 11 walks. I mean, he's been absolute money, and they need him tonight. You know, don't want to fall in that old 2-0-2 hole, so they obviously need him tonight. Keuchel, we saw him struggle in the last series, gave up a couple of home runs, and there was a 1-1 until they gave up that 2-run shot. I think it was in the 7th inning. So it wasn't like he was pitching horribly, but Kershaw was pitching better, and now it's going to rest on Verlander to get him in the series.
What an acquisition. I mean, think about it. You know, about another guy who the narrative changed, and I hope that everyone had a chance to hear Buster Olney in the story that he told us on Verlander after the ALCS, or it might have been after one of his starts, about how Verlander at one point his velocity was down in the mid-80s, and then he went out behind the dugout one night after he got taken out of a game and just started to cry because he felt like his career was over. He had just lost it. And then he rehabbed it, and he worked his way back, and there he is now throwing in the upper 90s. And they'll need him tonight again if they're going to get back in this World Series. Okay, some basketball. LeBron James played point guard last night in a game against the Bulls. Now, part of this is because of injuries. Derrick Rose is hurt, and we know Isaiah Thomas isn't playing.
Right.
But I've said forever, LeBron James was born to be a point guard. I'd love to see them experiment with this a little bit more.
Well, I mean, he hasn't done it since 2005. He does have 47 starts at point guard. So he has done it before. He's basically played every position out there and scored it. He has 20-point, 10 assist game by starting position. He's done it at every position. He's 20 points, 10 assist games. He's done it one time at shooting guard, 6 at power forward, 6 at point guard, and 141 times at his position of small forward. But it's a guy that we know can play in a position on the court.
That's the thing. I mean, he always does play sort of a modified version of point guard.
Start out
anyway.
wherever he's going to start the game out, and then what it morphs into during the game.
But I do like the idea of just putting the ball in his hands. He can do it. And if you watch any of the game last night, they played the Bulls. It was actually a close game most of the night. And the Bulls are terrible. But he's got the ball in the post, and he's sort of orchestrating from there. And put the ball in his hands and let him do what he wants with it. No one has a better idea of what to do with it than he does. Wizards and Lakers tonight on ESPN, and there's a little bad blood going into this thing. And who else would you expect? It involves LeVar Ball.
Yeah, it does. Who said he was going to be quiet once his son was drafted, and he's been anything but. He's continuing to be a pain in the butt, quite honestly. He shot a video, or in a video, he said, Washington is coming in Wednesday. They better beware because Lonzo ain't losing again this week. It's always great that he singles out Lonzo and doesn't talk about the team at all. So it's either about himself or his son, and never about the team. So Gortat from Washington basically tweeted that his teammate John Wall will torture Lonzo Ball for 48 minutes. And, oh, by the way, John Wall has had incredible success playing against rookies in his career. He's basically doubled them in points and doubled them in assists at this point.
Well, so the hilarious thing then is, so now the Lakers have Lonzo's back. So, like, they are all upset that Gortat tweeted this when Gortat is obviously responding to the father.
To the father. That's exactly right. The guy that said he was going to be quiet and continues to be a mockery. And just go try and run your business, man. I mean, big baller brand, do your thing, man. Go ahead. I mean, it's your business, do your thing. But you got to do videos like, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. As I said, I'm not going to criticize the guy about his company and what he's trying to do, how he's trying to market it. I get all that. But about this, I mean, God, just shut up about your kid playing. Or let him go play. I mean, my God, it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. So now you got this. So now you got, we got to have Lonzo's back because the dad's shooting his mouth off and the other team is obviously going to put a target on his back. My God, it's just idiotic.
The counter argument to that, and I happen to agree with you 100%, but the counter argument I see when people say things like that on Twitter is, well, people keep putting cameras in his face. People keep putting microphones in his face. ESPN keeps asking him questions.
That's exactly right.
So he's going to answer. If you don't want to hear him, then stop asking him questions.
But he's the one who said, I'm going to be quiet now once my son got drafted. Obviously, he can't even listen to his own words. But you're right.
He had his fingers crossed when he said
it's exactly right. He gets the mic put in his mouth, or put in his face. But you know what? It's him. He's the one that's talking. I'm not blaming the media for this one. Everybody wants to blame the media. God, as I said, I ain't coming on this show. But they want to put a microphone in front of his face. He doesn't have to talk, yet he doesn't know how to shut up.
Off the top.
And finally, Anthony Davis is undergoing an MRI after hurting his knee against Portland. So some concern about him there. I don't think that they think it's going to be something terrible, but anytime you hear anything like this, because this is a guy who's had significant knee problems before that have cost him a lot of games.
Yeah, since his first season in 2012-13 season, he's missed 75 games, so we'll see what this one leads to as far as missing games. Luckily, the MRI was negative, but he is a guy that's, been nicked occasionally, obviously, and missing those games and then going forward.
And that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike. Right now at Lowe's, you can save on the supplies you need most from the brands you trust to help get the job done on time and on budget. Visit lowesforpros.com for details. So there's two major storylines, I think, coming out. Well, more than that, because you've got the weather, which was hilarious, and then you've got the time of the game. The 2 hours and 28 minutes is the fastest World Series game since 1992. That's
incredible.
A remarkably long time, 25 years since the last time they had a World Series game played this quickly. But I actually went and looked it up. Do you know what the fastest World Series game ever was?
No.
The fastest. What do you think the chances are that these two teams will break the record for the shortest World Series game?
None.
I would agree with you completely. The shortest World Series game was played between the Cleveland Indians and the Boston Braves in 1948. Johnny Sain, Spawn Sain and Pray for Rain, and Steve Gromek did the pitching. They both went the complete distance in Game 4. It lasted 1 hour and 31 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, we have an hour and 31 minutes worth of commercials.
So an hour less. This game was
2:28.
So basically an hour less.
57 minutes faster.
Holy smoke.
Than last night's game was. So it's not going to break that. But one way or another, so those are all the kind of peripheral storylines. But the real storyline going into this is that you have a pitcher in Clayton Kershaw whose numbers would suggest that if you wanted to make an argument that he's the greatest pitcher of all time, you could. His numbers compare favorably with, you want to use the modern era guys, Clemens, Randy Johnson, Pedro, whoever you want. You want to go back to Sandy Koufax and the compact brilliance that he had. You want to go back farther than that and through the history of the game. But we live in such a postseason era now where we have that in mind that I think most people's perception of him is, yeah, that's the guy who's really good, but he can't get it done in the playoffs. Well, he has completely changing that narrative right in front of our eyes.
Well, he is, and he'll have to. But people aren't going to be satisfied till they have the ring, and he gets at least two of the wins in it, if not three, because Dave Roberts said he wasn't going to throw him on short rest in Game 4.
He's not going to pitch Game 4.
Only threw 83 pitches though as well, but he's not going to pitch Game 4. So let's see
where they are.
I was going to say let's see where the series is at that point and that decision. But I'm with you. I understand what you're saying, but we are. Listen, this was the narrative of Peyton Manning, right? Before Peyton Manning finally won his first Super Bowl. Great regular season stats. Can't get it done in the postseason. Finally did against the Bears. Got as a Colt, now got it, and then got it done as a Bronco. But we know that was kind of a different scenario. But that was a book on him for the longest time. You'd recognize him as one of the great quarterbacks, but it's like, you can't get it done in the postseason. Now there are those like Dan Marino that have done that as well and still considered some of the greatest. So Kershaw isn't going to be completely dismissed. But boy, how it can elevate what you do if you get it done in the postseason.
Randy Johnson, the guy that I compared him to off the top of the show, lost 7 consecutive starts in the playoffs from 95 to 2001, the longest streak of its kind at the time, and then he completely rewrote all of that in the 2001 World Series as a Diamondback, winning 2 games as a starter and then 1 more as a reliever. So here's Clayton Kershaw. Again, so far in this postseason, the Dodgers have won all 3 of his starts, and they have won 8 of Kershaw's last 9 postseason starts in total. So he has been sensational, and here was Kershaw last night on the advantage he felt against the Astros, since none of them, or almost none, had ever seen him before.
Anytime a pitcher hasn't faced a hitter, I feel like the pitcher has the advantage, and then the more times a hitter sees somebody, the more the advantage goes to the hitter. So with Dallas tonight and myself, there's a lot of guys that we haven't faced in each other's lineups, and that can only help the pitcher at that point. Once they start seeing you, I'm sure, they're going to have a different, not necessarily different, but they're going to have seen me now in Game 5. So it's going to be, there's going to be some adjustments to be made, just like our hitters. We've seen Keuchel now. He threw the ball well tonight. So we're going to have to make some adjustments, and it can only help those hitters if you ask them to see a guy.
Again, Kershaw became the first pitcher all season to strike out 11 Astros in a game. And I'll say it again because the Astros didn't have a single at-bat with runners in scoring position. And nothing. Because after Kershaw threw, 2 relievers came in through an inning each, didn't give up a hit. It was just it was very impressive,
yeah.
and obviously showed in the time of the game as well. Because I said on the other side, Keuchel wasn't awful by any stretch. It's a 1-1 game. He gives up a leadoff home run. He did give up 6 hits, but then he gives up that 2-run shot, where he ends up coming out of the game. So that's a big one there. But another reason I should say, the game moved along pretty quickly.
Yeah, I misspoke. Kershaw, they've won all 4 of his starts this playoffs, not just 3. He started 4 games so far in these playoffs, and they've won them all. And again, they've won now 8 of his last 9 postseason starts. And then there's Justin Turner, who is becoming a folk hero in these playoffs for the Dodgers, and he had the big blast last night. And there's an interesting little moment. You, of all people, are going to like this if you haven't heard this soundbite yet, and you will hear him explain it. He got beat the first 2 times he went up last night, so he made one very significant adjustment in his 3rd at bat, and it wound up changing the game.
My first 2 at bats, I was swinging a little bit bigger bat, a 34.5, and I got beat in a couple times, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go and switch back to my 33.5 that I normally use, a little smaller bat, and good thing I did, because I didn't get beat in the 3rd time.
It's impressive. Listen,
he most certainly did not.
You make adjustments. You just the lighter bat, the smaller bat, and get around on it, and he certainly did. to the tune of a 2-run shot, 3-1 lead, and that ended up being the ball game. But, that's what you do. You make adjustments. Whether it's before the game, you get your game plan, or in-game, you make in-game adjustments.
Justin Turner is putting up ridiculous numbers. So we are asked by our friends at Sport Clips to pick an MVP moment of the week. You can help fund scholarships for U.S. veterans. Donate to the Help a Hero program at a Sport Clips near you. Well, how about this for an MVP moment of the week? From Justin Turner, there are 310 hitters who have had at least 100 career plate appearances in the postseason, okay? In the whole history of the sport, 310 guys have batted at least 100 times in the playoffs. There are only 2 of them who have a higher OPS than Justin Turner, and those 2 are Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. It's Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, and Justin Turner in that order for the highest OPS in the history of Major League Baseball's postseason.
That's one of those, you take a snapshot of it right now. Isn't that what Lee Corso did when he was coaching at Indiana?
Yes.
They were beating, what was it, Florida?
Ohio State. They had a 7-0 lead at the end of the first quarter. He gathered his team on the field and took a picture of
with
the scoreboard
behind it. It's just awesome.
And then they lost.
Yeah.
And so we'll see.
That's what he needs to do, take a snapshot of that list.
Listen, Justin Turner, you can't be playing any better than he's playing. So obviously our coverage of the World Series will continue all morning long here. We'll have Eduardo Perez in our studio in about 15 minutes with all of his thoughts on what we saw last night in Game 1, looking ahead to Game 2 and the rest of the way. I do want to try and get some more in this morning as well. So to me, the next most interesting thing of the day yesterday was the Martavis Bryant story. Yep. If you were with us in the final hour of our show yesterday, that's when Josina Anderson started posting the quotes from her telephone conversation with Martavis Bryant, in which he very directly, and we read them all to you yesterday, and by now you've probably seen them, where he just basically said, look, I got to get out of here. I mean, if I'm not going to be more a part of this offense in Pittsburgh, I've got to get out. And when you consider the history that is there with his suspension for the year last year and everything else, and you consider that it's a team with Antonio Brown and a team with Le'Veon Bell, there were a lot of people. Louis Riddick was in our studio when I was reading those quotes, and he was rolling his eyes. Candidly, he was rolling them at me as I was reading them, and I was like, dude,
I'm just a messenger
I'm just reading the quotes here. So I was very curious to hear what Mike Tomlin would say in response. I assume by now, Mike, you've heard what Mike Tomlin said in response. We'll let him respond, then we'll let Golick do it. Here was Mike Tomlin with his very direct thoughts.
We'll move forward. He's a good guy to work with in the building and has been. We've been very clear about this process of getting reacclimated to us. Not an easy one, but he's worked diligently. I like his approach. But he says some things when he's not around us that are somewhat of a distraction. And I say somewhat because we're having to field questions regarding it, not because it's high on my agenda.
Yeah, when we talk about somewhat of a distraction, because I've always said, listen, the distraction part of it is having to answer questions. If this shouldn't interrupt your lifting session, your film session, your walkthrough, or your practice, but when you have to answer questions about it, it's something you shouldn't have to answer questions about. And he has to, and teammates will be asked as well. Listen, Lewis and I both said it yesterday. This isn't the way you go about it. But we're in an era, certainly like in basketball, where players can control so much now. So a player can kind of control where he goes or how he goes about his business. But this one, I just, supposedly he was not all that ecstatic when Juju Smith-Schuster was drafted in the second round. And I sit there and say to myself, dude, you brought it on yourself. You weren't around last year. Would you expect them to just wait for you? I mean, you had to stay off the practice field for a while earlier on this year until you were granted the opportunity to go, okay, now you can go practice and play. You couldn't be counted on. So they went and got another wide receiver. Now, that said, the dude can catch the ball. I do think he is a good receiver. For some reason, it's not happening now in this offense. And obviously, if you hear the extended talk of Tomlin, he didn't go, as I've always said, if you're going to talk, I hate when you talk publicly about it. And what he's doing now is ridiculous because it's outside the building, on the social media things. But I've always said, if you're going to go do that, which I don't like, I hope you've talked in-house to people. And he obviously hasn't, because Mike Tomlin mentioned more than a few times that they haven't spoken, but they will, and then he will rain down his discipline, as they said, or rain down his decision, I think was the line that Mike Tomlin used when they do speak. So he is handling this poorly. And I don't know where it's going to lead. Listen, if it leads to him being gone, he'll have got exactly what he wants. So he'll have said, you know what, everything I did was for a reason if I'm free from here and can go somewhere else. But I don't know where it's going to go. If you ask me, I don't think that's going to happen. I think more will happen before that would happen as far as inactives or other things like that if he keeps up with the act that he's going on with right now.
Yeah, I mean, making him inactive isn't really serving any obvious purpose. The one
it's
thing
a
I'd
punishment.
say is
that's all it is.
You had Antonio Brown like flipping over the Gatorade thing on the sideline, and the next thing you know, I mean, Ben spent the entire next week, if you watch that next game, force-feeding every single ball in his direction. Yep. So if you're Martavis Bryant, you see that, and you're like, okay, well, the squeaky wheel gets the grease around here, and I get it. Antonio Brown is a better player than Martavis Bryant.
That's also understanding the pecking order as well.
I get it. I understand that, but I think Martavis Bryant views himself as a better player than he thinks the Steelers are allowing him to be. And maybe he is. And I'm not excusing what he's doing. Maybe he's not going about it the right way, but the reality is this is a guy who was a fourth-round pick. He's making $615,000. He sees what guys who get the ball thrown to them a lot more than he does are getting paid, and he's saying, look, I got to get out there. I got to go someplace they're going to throw me the ball. And if it isn't going to be here, then I got to go somewhere else. Now, should he be saying it to Josina? Probably not. And does the fact that he was suspended last year play into all of this in a million different ways? Yeah, it obviously does. Yeah. But taken just purely as the frustration of I've become the number 3 option, and at absolute best if you want to include Bell, the number 4 option in this offense, and at best number 3 when I think I'm good enough to be number 1 in a lot of different places, and the difference in that is like $30 or $40 million. I understand that. I understand his wanting to get out of there. I
understand his frustration. Then there's the process to go through.
How you go about it. Now, again, I don't know exactly how he could better do it. I guess anything would be better than this. But if he really wants out of there, how do you get out of there? Like, how do you get yourself out of there?
The first thing you do is have a normal conversation with your coach. I think it would start there about your frustrations and going from there. And to me, you're better apt of getting something that's more along the lines of what you want if you go about the process. But that being said, we just saw in basketball, I want out, could mean I want out of I don't want to be here, the hair salon or Phoenix, and Eric Bledsoe's not going to play in Phoenix anymore. So to your point, you're right. Maybe guys think the more I complain about something, especially on social media, hey, I didn't do it in the building, did it in my own time. I'm not doing it when the reporters are here. So I don't know. Maybe that's the way of today. I just can't. I personally can't stand.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance. So you can feel at home, wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
We've got plenty of football to get to later, but clearly the World Series taking center stage right now, and our friend Eduardo Perez has made his way in studio bright and early this morning. Good to see you, Eduardo. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to find a place where I can really take a nap. Tried to break into your guys' office. Didn't work. It's okay, but maybe you guys will give me a key.
I think Stephen A. has an office here, and there's a couch in it.
So really?
Yeah, and I don't know how much he's here, so maybe
I have a cot, a sleeping bag, and a pillow in mine.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
I need a key.
All right, I got you covered here right after this.
Nice.
Right after the, give us a couple of good minutes of insight here. So let's start with Kershaw, because to me he's the big story in this. Kershaw's legacy is not only obviously is the World Series on the line, which to everyone is the most important thing, but in many ways I feel like Kershaw is pitching to himself to a new legacy in these playoffs, where he's 4-0, and where last night he had one of the great World Series games of all time. What are you seeing in Kershaw?
He had the potential to go 9 innings yesterday, throw a complete game, and really cement himself in history when it comes to the World Series, and he knew it. He knew that he had to be economical. He knew he needed to be efficient on the mound, and he was. With those 11 strikeouts, the slider was devastating. They could not pick it up. And I was watching the game yesterday with Charlie Blackmon. He's hanging around studio, and he was telling me you cannot pick up the red little dot on the slider, and that's what makes him so difficult, and that's what the Astros struggled with yesterday. A team that doesn't strike out much. He had a game plan, he established in, and he really used Phil Cuzzy behind the plate. He used his weakness, which was a lot of strikes down low. He could get strikes under the quote-unquote strike zone, get those calls consistently, and he was just filthy. The guys were chasing. They had no chance, but you're right. This is a game that not only was he looking forward to for so many years, but his game plan, he executed it, the emotions with the electricity that was going on in that stadium, he had it down, and that was the beauty of Clayton Kershaw last night. And you listen to his postgame, he said in Game 5, he's not even hoping that the team sweeps. He wants to pitch Game 5 to pitch another World Series game.
So let's go from the other side of that, from a hitter standpoint, getting into that batter's box, coming through that order the next time up against him. What adjustments? Obviously, he only gave up 3 hits, so the adjustments weren't working all that well for the hitters. But take us into a hitter's mind in facing a guy who's throwing like that as you're going up in the plate again.
Okay, I'm going to take, for example, George Springer yesterday, which had a rough night. First at bat, he comes in and he swings at the first pitch. He missed the cookie. He missed the cookie that actually Chris Taylor didn't miss against Dallas Keuchel,
right?
The first pitch home run. Okay, he misses that. After that, Kershaw now has him looking middle in. His sights are there. He starts now taking some stuff off. He throws a curveball, 72 miles per hour. The differential of over 20 miles per hour from the curveball to the fastball and well located, that's the tough part. Now he's shown him 2 pitches, and he has yet to show him the most devastating pitch, which is the slider when you don't pick up rotation. You do that, now you're looking in, you're looking soft. Oh, by the way, I can backdoor a slider on you, and you have no chance of reaching it because your front hip is out. Marwin Gonzalez, the same thing. He was cheating in. Kershaw's thinking one step ahead of him. Sort of reminded me of Verlander in Game 6 of the ALCS. When you're looking fastball, he'll throw a slider. When you're looking slider, he'll throw something slower with a wrinkle, with a curveball, and he'll keep you off balance. That was Clayton Kershaw yesterday with great control.
Mike Eduardo Perez in our studio. This one's for the advanced class only, but let's try and teach people a little baseball here. He pitched backwards last night to some degree, Kershaw, right? 50%, 46% of the hitters, he started with a breaking ball. So that's obviously contrary to what guys are accustomed to. What effect do you think that had on the game last night?
Huge. You have a guy that throws in the mid-90s, and he knows going in, listen, they've been taking me out in the 6th inning. They know that they've been taking. He needs to go deeper in the game. He wants to go deeper in the game. This guy's a horse. He's thinking 9 innings all the way. So now he comes in and he pitches backwards. That means if you're looking fastball, you usually are first pitch, but you know it's an aggressive team like the Astros, a team that doesn't strike out much, a team that has power from 1 through 8 now in the lineup because the pitcher hits no DH. You have to be able to keep them off balance, and you have to make a really good pitch on the first pitch. Either an aggressive chase pitch with the slider, they're looking fastball, and it looks like a fastball, so he gets ahead 0-1, or you go with the slow, get me over the top curveball, but a well-located one that if they do make contact, it's soft contact, and he allows his defense to work for him.
So is there a little bit of relief tonight at what's Rich Hill on the mound for the Dodgers? The only problem is if you get to him, you got the bullpen then to deal with as well for the Dodgers. Oh, by the way, just two pitchers last night, but they went 6 up, 6 down.
Right, and that's Dave Roberts' plan. That's why they That's why they split up Kershaw and Darvish, because they know those 2 horses can go deeper into the games, and all you need is 2 guys, maybe just 1, to get them through. I thought yesterday you probably just needed 1 guy because I thought Kershaw was good enough for the 8th inning. But now with Rich Hill, he'll have a shorter leash on him, especially with a day off the next day when they travel to Houston. So look for Rich Hill to just go 4, possibly 5 innings, and then the bullpen takes care of the rest, which is your strength. I mean, Dave Roberts in the analytics department, they're playing it right.
Mike Eduardo Perez is here, with the Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Let's talk about Justin Turner. I saw you mouthing the stat along with me as I was saying it in SportsCenter. The 3 highest OPSs in baseball postseason history now belong to Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, and Justin Turner. He's having one of those playoffs that you dream about. What are you seeing in him?
He's locked in, and he knows and he feels it during the game. And you guys alluded to it earlier, and you guys talked about it, and even listened to him say about the bat. And again, he was using a heavier bat because the impression is against Dallas Keuchel is, well, he's a thumber. You need to use a heavier bat, a longer bat, because he's going to throw that 2-seam fastball away. I can catch up to it. Well, the game plan of Keuchel was he was beating him inside all game. So he goes and he says, I'm going to use my usual bat, the 33.5. Oh, guess what? The weather, it was 90-plus degrees there at night. The ball travels a lot better. That ball, when hit in the usual summertime where it's 60-some, 70-degree weather where it doesn't travel much, that is a can of corn in left field. That's at the warning track at least. So Marwin Gonzalez could have made a play. Instead, he brings his hands in, gets jammed, but the ball goes deep enough to get out of the ballpark. But it all wouldn't have happened without Chris Taylor's walk, and that to me was the key at-bat in the game to allow Turner to get up.
I still that leadoff home run by Taylor.
How about that?
Holy smokes. I mean, yeah, as I said, we're going to talk a lot about Kershaw, but to walk up in the at-bat, step in, first pitch, and knock it out of the park, it had to be an unreal feeling.
And under every pressure situation in the NLCS, Chris Taylor would grab the bat, and you could tell when they have a close-up on him, he's not gripping the bat hard. He's breathing right. The moment isn't too big for him. And with young players, you see the moment being really big for Chris Taylor. First pitch of the game, going up there saying, hey, if he throws me a pitch, a cookie, right down the middle, I'm swinging and I'm not missing. Hey, man.
Yeah, he didn't.
Hats off.
And so I did not get a chance to see your prediction before the series began.
So terrible.
Did anything, well, I would just ask, did anything that you saw last night, what did you see last night that informed your perspective on what's going to happen going forward? I mean, obviously every game is a new game. And did it change anything in your mind?
The greatness of Clayton Kershaw really stood out. And again, this is a guy that uses all four corners, just like North Carolina, the offense.
Yeah, the four corners,
right?
Yeah.
This is what he did yesterday, and he pitched to the strength of the umpire by a lot of calls down low. That's what Phil Cuzzy does, and he pitched there. He stayed low and he kept going lower, like and not only that, again. I thought last night it was all about Dallas Keuchel, and I thought Dallas Keuchel was going to have a superb night. He made two mistakes.
Yeah.
He made two mistakes.
Yeah, he didn't pitch awful, right?
He did not. He pitched great. The problem is
it's two more than Kershaw made, yeah. Or one more than Kershaw made, yeah.
Greatness of Kershaw, but I actually have the Astros in 5.
In 5. Okay, well, it's not impossible. We have the Astros in 6.
With the expectation that Verlander is going to do maybe close to what Kershaw did last night, Verlander do tonight?
Well, I thought Verlander game 2, and I thought Kershaw in game 1 would get beat by just a better Keuchel. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. I didn't know it was going to go 2 hours and 20 minutes?
2 hours, 28 minutes, which bought Eduardo is a few extra minutes of sleep.
Or you
Eduardo.
had to go on SportsCenter.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much for coming in. I'll get you the key to the office. You go take a nap. I got a cot. I got a sleeping bag.
That's what I'm talking about.
You'll be very comfortable.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Great hour of football conversation on the way with Jon Gruden and Kirk Herbstreit back-to-back, as we do every single Wednesday. Obviously, plenty on the World Series this morning. The big story for me coming out of not just yesterday, but the entirety of this postseason right now is the Clayton Kershaw story. You are seeing Peyton Manning getting his first championship. You were seeing Michael Jordan. I know it sounds crazy to say it, but those of you old enough to remember will know what I'm talking about. Michael Jordan was once known as a superstar offensive, unbelievable show,
right,
who couldn't win titles, didn't make others around him better the way Magic Johnson and Larry Bird did. And then all of a sudden he won 6 titles in 8 years and no one said that anymore. So that's what we're seeing in Clayton Kershaw is him right now is him taking this opportunity and becoming a truly immortal pitcher. So we have all that. But then there was the Heat last night. And of all the people talking about the Heat last night, my favorite was Tim Kirkjian. Did you hear what Timmy said?
I did, yes.
Okay, you're going to really enjoy this. Just sit back and listen. Here's Tim Kirkjian on the Heat.
Look, I never sweat. I weigh like 148 pounds, so there's no reason for me to sweat, and I was soaking wet. That's how hot it was. But I'm telling you this, these guys who are playing in their first World Series, they could care less how hot it was today, and I can also tell you it was a whole lot better than playing in 35-degree weather in October.
Well, that I agree with for baseball, no doubt about it. Listen, 148 pounds. You could weigh Timmy on like a grocery scale where you weigh the vegetables. You just put them in a little bag and put them on the scale. I wonder what it would cost you. You know what I mean? I wonder what the slip would come out as, how much it costs you. Timmy Kirkjian by the pound. How much is a Timmy Kirkshin by the pound?
It's 148 pounds. I mean,
how much it cost you a pound?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
$1.50.
Yeah,
I really
how about
don't
it?
know.
He's an expensive little guy.
I just thought that was funny the way he said, look, I never sweat.
Yeah.
I'm working on my Kirkshin. It's only taken me 18 years. Timmy used to host the show with me. I remember vividly Timmy hosting the show with me when you were off one day in the summer of our first year. And I remember it primarily because my wife was pregnant and we were going to have our first child, and he was talking to me about I didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl.
Right.
He gave me some advice that I remember to this day. So that's 18 years, and that I've known Timmy well. And I've never done. Everyone does an imitation of Tim. I'm working on mine. So at some point in the next 3 weeks, I'm going to.
You're going to break it out.
Not quite ready yet. When the World Series ends, I will do my Tim Kirkshin.
Okay, good.
Meantime, I got a lot of really interesting Twitter here through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, and nothing makes up for a football obsession like bouquets from 1-800-Flowers.com. When you order a dozen red or assorted roses for only $29.99, you get another dozen plus a vase absolutely free. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. On the subject of Martavis Bryant. Mm-hmm. I don't want to misstate my own position. I'm not saying I think he's handling this great, but I understand. I understand the situation that he's in, and I understand his frustration. And so we've got this tweet that I think is interesting. Chris Kaywood tweeted at us, seems like athletes in the past were loyal to teams who helped them through hard times. Now it's all about them. Is that right? Is that wrong?
No, I don't know if it was loyal to teams. Can we?
Players had no mobility, they had no flexibility, they had no power, they had no ability to change.
So that's
situations.
why I say let's ease up on the loyalty to teams. Before 1993, we didn't have a choice. Okay, there was no free agency, so you had no choice in the matter of what you were going to do. So that can be overstated a little bit. This is a business. It is a flat-out business, and the sooner you realize that, the better off you are, instead of trying to say, well, they owe me this, the team owes this guy this, or this guy owes the team this. No, you don't. It's a business. Everybody's looking out what's going to help them best, from a team aspect to then what you can get individually as well. That's how it works. And you'd like in a team sport, your players to be team-oriented, but still they have the thought of, okay, I still want to try and get mine as well.
Here's the deal. The Pittsburgh Steelers existed before Martavis Bryant, and they're going to exist long after. And they were worth billions of dollars before, and we're going to be worth billions of dollars after. And he is going to have this incredibly short window in his life to try to maximize the amount of money he can make. Now, I get it. He's a bad witness, if you will, in a trial, if this were that, because he has done so many things to himself. I mean,
yes, he has.
All the suspensions and everything else.
Suspended for a year, that was his doing. Nobody else.
It makes him the last person in a way that you want to hear this from. But at the same time, he's a 25-year-old football player who's got one opportunity. Let's face it, one huge contract. Mm-hmm. Players very rarely get more than one really big contract. So he's trying to set himself up to get that one big contract.
Right.
And if he's on a team with Antonio Brown and with Le'Veon Bell, and where they are developing a 20-year-old budding star in this other kid who had his bike stolen. I don't know what's going on with that.
Juju Smith-Schuster.
But whatever.
And by the way, one of the reasons you take him is because you have Bryant, who was suspended for the entire year, coming off of that.
Granted. So that works against him badly.
It does.
If you're sort of judging how you view his actions. That said, I totally get him wanting to get the heck out of there.
We're in agreement there. He could sit down and say all those things you said and said, I need to get somewhere else. Then you need to say, okay, what's the best process? Now, I want to be out of here. How do I go about it? That's where I think you make the turn to, is this the way of today? Is this the way to do it now? Is this the right approach? And I guess time will tell, but that's it. I agree with you on everything, but then we get to the process, and that's where the big questions come up.
Well, that's Jon Gruden about it. He'll join us shortly. Gruden and Herbie in our next hour. Stay there. Mike and Mike.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit Geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Here we are, and busy we are on a Wednesday morning. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Terrific hour on the way on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Gruden and Herbie back-to-back. Plenty of football to talk about. Football, pro and then college.
Yes, college. And Herbie, I got a bone to pick with.
Yeah, you're going to get at it with Herbie finally.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the World Series last night. Clayton Kershaw, sensational. Dallas Keuchel made 2 big mistakes, and the Dodgers made him pay. And the Dodgers take a 3-1 win and a 1-0 series lead in 2 hours and 28 minutes.
2 mistakes by Keuchel, 2 home runs, 1 mistake by Kershaw. You had good pitching going on. Rich Hill tonight against Verlander. We just had Eduardo Perez in here who thought Hill would go maybe 4 to 5 innings, if that was the expectation, or he thinks it would be. Then get to the bullpen. Bullpen had two guys throw last night, 6 up, 6 down. And how about this? The Dodgers bullpen in the last 7 games, 23 innings, no runs allowed, 27 strikeouts, and 1 walk. They've been ridiculous.
Yep.
So if you use them a little bit more tonight, then you got the travel day, the day off, to get them refreshed a little bit, and onward you go. So we'll see.
If you take a 2-0 lead with you on the road as well, obviously you feel ridiculously good about yourself if you've gotten through Keuchel and Verlander, and Verlander, who has been one of the great midseason trade acquisitions ever. I mean, that conversation can begin a little bit here, too, about the great pickups that we've ever seen at the trade deadline. They don't beat the Yankees without him. There's no way in the world they get through that series without Verlander being every bit as good as he was. And now they're going to – it certainly feels like they're going to need him again if they're going to have a chance to win the World Series. And then the other thing, just quickly, for those of you watching on ESPN2, you saw it. They're running all of these Mike and Mike memories, flashback moments. Throwbacks, and they just showed the one where one of our bracket wagers, you had to have your legs and arms waxed.
Yes, I did.
And it was really fun. And it's fun to watch these. Well, it was fun watching it.
Okay.
8 years later.
Yeah.
But among the many things that strike me, we've been doing this so long, is just how different we look. I mean, looking at myself in that thing, I wonder any number of things. One is, what was I thinking with my hair? 2, what the heck was I wearing?
Yeah.
And 3, I mean, watching you lying there as fat as you were getting your legs waxed was just hilarious.
I think the 2 things we've learned over the years is, A, that I was very fluffy and have lost a lot of weight. And you, no matter when we show a picture, whether it's 2000 when this started or now, your hair is the exact same color.
It's the same color.
And you color it. So when did you start coloring your hair?
God is my witness.
Yeah.
I have not colored my hair once.
Whatever.
Not once.
Whatever.
That is my original hair color. They're showing it on TV right now.
The styles have changed.
Send me this picture. Send me this with the split screen. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I look like 2 different people.
The hairstyles have changed. The color has not.
Has not changed.
Things that make you go,
as God is my witness,
whatever.
I have not changed a thing. All right, let's get Gruden in here. So every week, Jon Gruden joins us to talk football, and every week we started out with a song, and we did vary away a little bit from your AC/DC Van Halen sweet spot, but I feel very comfortable.
Oh, absolutely
very comfortable with this one. Jon Gruden, how do we feel about the Smoke on the Water?
Deep Purple.
That reminds me of Tyreek Hill on a wet night, man. Smoke on the Water. Love it.
I had this and an 8-track.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, and I loved it. Oh, man.
All right, that's you want to talk about dating ourselves?
You're not kidding. Every young kid's going, what's an 8-track?
And Jon Gruden is right now watching a lot of tape of Tyreek Hill because we have Broncos and Chiefs coming up this coming Monday in a really interesting AFC West matchup. We'll get to that in a moment. But, John, I want to start with the game you guys had this past weekend, the NFC East matchup between Carson Wentz and your brother's team in Washington, and Wentz was just spectacular. So I'm really – we spent basically 4 hours yesterday talking about Carson Wentz. Let's get it from you here, as now you've had a chance to sort of digest what you saw and everything you've seen from him in his second year. What are we seeing right now in the Eagles' young quarterback?
Well, you're seeing it all. And, when you watch him practice, when you're around him, perhaps the greatness is some of the things you don't see is his presence. He has a presence in the building. He has a presence on the practice field, and he's got a sincere approach with his teammates. He has a real care about everybody on the team getting better. There's a lot of sincere enthusiasm, cheerleading, rallying going on from him behind the scenes. He's hard-nosed. He brings it, Mike, every week, every day, every down, and he's been well coached. They've upgraded the supporting cast. I think you really got to go back and take a look at Howie Roseman, the general manager. I don't think it's been brought up. I don't think we did probably a good enough job giving Howie Roseman credit for getting Carson Wentz. Remember, Philadelphia had the 13th pick in the draft. They traded up to number 8 with Miami, and then they traded up to get this man. I don't know how they did it. And I know the Washington Redskins, the Cowboys, and the New York Giants are probably upset with Cleveland for letting Philly go up and get this guy.
Yeah, I would say so. I think there.
So are the fans in Cleveland, but that's neither here nor there.
Cleveland every day. So we deal with injuries all the time, John, and certainly the marquee one this year of many injuries had been Aaron Rodgers, but we saw Joe Thomas go down in that streak stop. We just saw, and then in your game, not only Brandon Sheriff, the right guard for Washington, who's a Pro Bowler, an excellent young guy, but an older guy, and Jason Peters go down, the left tackle for the Eagles. We saw that team without Lane Johnson last year at right tackle for suspension, and that line started to struggle. What are the expectations? Talk about it from the O-line aspect when you lose a guy like that, the changes that occur. Can it change X's and O's wise? Do you have to give the next, if it's Lane Johnson over there, more help? How do that adjustments go?
Well, it's the blind side of your quarterback, and as you know, whoever they put up there is going to have to block a marquee pass rusher in critical situations for the rest of the season. And I don't know if they're going to make a two-position switch or not. Will they move Lane Johnson over there? Perhaps. I think he was selected number 4 overall in the draft to be the long-term answer at left tackle. But now you're talking about a two-position switch, and sometimes that's unhealthy at mid-season. But they're going to need to chip. They're going to need to do a lot of things to try to obviously help that left tackle, changing the launching spot, throwing the quick game. But that's what Doug Peterson does extremely well, and they're going to have to rally around whoever that is. But there are a couple options with Lane Johnson potentially moving over or just staying with Itai.
Mike Jon Gruden is with us, so that was last week's game. We'll get to this week's game. Another of the big topics that we're talking about today is the situation with Martavis Bryant in Pittsburgh, and it's multi-layered. But my basic question to you is this, John, because before you were a head coach, you were an offensive coach, and so you've dealt with all of this before. You've got a guy, and we can take the particulars out of it, who isn't nearly as big a part of the offense as he wants to be. He's a very talented player, but you've got superstars on that offense. You've got Antonio Brown out there, and you've got Le'Veon Bell behind you. So he's not as much a part of the offense as he wants to be, and he's complaining about it noticeably. And he's doing it publicly, which may be a terrible idea, but that's neither here nor there. But when a guy just comes to you and says, hey, coach, I need the ball more. I need to be more a part of what's going on here. I'm capable of giving so much more. I want to be more a part of what we're doing. How is that handled inside the building?
Well, it's handled differently depending on who it is and where you are. I have had a lot of receivers yell at me and come to me and ask me to get them more and more involved. And you just have to keep selling the team aspect, the length of the season. You know, Bryant has had a lot of issues. And in his young career, let's be honest, he's had a lot of problems off the field. I'm sure there's a lot of frustration. And Schuster has played extremely well. And he's not the go-to guy, and he won't be as long as Antonio Brown is still in Pittsburgh. But they need him. He, I think, single-handedly helped them beat the Minnesota Vikings earlier this season. You just got to learn to be patient. Sometimes these young receivers want it all right away. And I know Mike Tomlin extremely well. He's very good behind the scenes with players. He's managed through a lot of tough situations in his career, and just try not to make a bigger deal about this than it is. This isn't the first or the last player that wants the ball at the wide receiver position.
Boy, that's for sure. Yeah, no doubt about
exactly
that.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think he'll be enough of a piece to that puzzle that they're not going to want to get rid of him, even though he's not happy, that he can have a few catches here and there that are going to be big for that team that's looking pretty good in the AFC. Let's go to a team in the NFC that's not looking as good. And some people always call it, is it the Super Bowl hangover? What is it? They have a lot of the same personnel. But the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, just don't look like they did certainly last year. Can you put your finger on anything with that team on why it seems so different? A lot of people point at Sarkisian, the offensive coordinator, but he doesn't execute the plays on the field. How is that marriage?
Well, it's obviously a stressful situation right now. And, when you make a change on the coaching staff, sometimes it impacts the product on the field, and sometimes there's an adjustment period. They've had some injuries at wide receiver. Let's not forget that. Julio Jones has missed some time. Don't know if he's 100%. Mohamed Sanu, a big piece of this puzzle, has been injured. I don't think their offensive line has come off the ball and blocked and created holes in the running game consistently like they did in years past. And they just have not been able to put teams away, Mike. They have jumped on some teams. They've gotten some leads early, and then they've fallen apart in the second half. For whatever reason, they've turned the ball over. Matt Ryan has thrown some uncharacteristic interceptions, and they haven't made the third down critical plays. But I still think they're extremely dangerous, and they need a little help from their defense as well. But they're a force. They're still in the mix. There's a lot of football yet to be played, and this NFC South is always going to be a division. It comes down to the last couple weeks.
Jon Gruden's with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. This week, you guys have the big one in the AFC West, the Broncos and the Chiefs. Let's start with Denver. I'm rooting like crazy for Trevor Siemian from Northwestern, but even I would have to acknowledge that right now, clearly, he is struggling and their offense is struggling. What is on the tape?
I'm watching this San Diego game, and Joey Bosa single-handedly ruined the game. Joey Bosa dominated the Denver Broncos offensive line. They have real issues at right tackle. Barber struggled against the Chargers. Then Menelik Watson couldn't handle JPP. A lot of problems at right tackle right now. They got a rookie at left tackle. And San Diego quietly, by the way, is a really good defensive team, but they're having a hard time blocking running plays, pass protection. Siemian is under fire. They're missing Sanders and outstanding receivers. I just don't feel the firepower that I once felt in Denver. They're really having a hard time getting this running game going. It's hard to watch offensive film right now, and unfortunately for them, their defense has been playing extremely well. They have wasted some great performances.
Do you think Siemian is on a short leash at all for this with this offense?
I don't know where they go, Mike. I saw Brock Osweiler come in against, the New York Giants when Siemian was injured. That's not going to help this matter. Paxton Lynch has missed 6 or 7 weeks. He's been injured. He played poorly in the preseason. They have to stay with Siemian, in my opinion, and find a way to get on track offensively. They just don't have any rhythm. They're not converting on third down. I think it's around 25%. And other than Demaryius Thomas, there's just not a lot of weapons that have consistently showed up.
And then on the other side, your former colleague there, Andy Reid, doing his game as he coaches the Kansas City Chiefs, who have lost a couple in a row. They were the last undefeated team, drop a couple in a row. How does Andy, knowing him as well as you do, how does he regroup over there?
I think they believe they should be 7-0, Mike. They lost the Pittsburgh game. You saw the catch that Antonio Brown made. It bounced off one of the Chiefs' defenders' helmets. It was a magnificent catch, but they had a chance to win the Pittsburgh game, and certainly the Raider game came down to the last few plays and one of the most bizarre finishes I've ever seen. But they're playing good football. They need to get Marcus Peters going at the cornerback position. They gave up way too many yards in the passing game. And they need to get some healthy pass rushers back. Dee Ford, is Tom Bahali going to play? They need to get Justin Houston some help. But I still think the Chiefs are a very good team. This is going to be an unbelievable atmosphere and a must-win situation for Kansas City and Denver, two teams that really don't have much like for each other.
Yeah, big game in what we figure to be a very tight division. It's this coming Monday night. The Broncos and the Chiefs, and Jon Gruden and company will be there. Thank you, John. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, John.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Jon Gruden with us every Wednesday here. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today and find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. And I'll admit it again, I'm hopelessly biased on the subject of Trevor Siemian.
I'm with you.
I will not try and hide it. He's the first starting quarterback we've had since Otto Graham coming out of Northwestern. I want to see it go well. And I'm not making excuses, but, I mean, they have a lot of problems there. It's not just the quarterback.
They do, but you know how it works. You know, the quarterback is the one that gets changed, especially if the quarterback's not lighting it up. But to John's point, and he's right, where are you going? There's not a whole lot to go to that you feel pretty secure about, but they do have struggles. Just what he said, that offensive line with injuries and bad play is not done well. They're not protecting him that well at all. So that's what I thought. Sometimes you look for that spark, but I don't think you're going to Brock Osweiler for the spark.
And then going back to the Martavis Bryant thing.
Yep,
I get it. For the purposes of trying to make his case, I wish he didn't have the issues in the past that he has with suspension, because they ruin almost everything I want to say.
Well, they do, and they're there. So,
I know that, but they don't have to play into this. I would rather have this be receiver X, okay? You're a young, talented receiver, and you're on a team that has, let's say, the most productive receiver maybe ever. I mean, Antonio Brown has had, you could probably put together a stat for me, Hembo, that would suggest that Antonio Brown has had the 3 most productive seasons consecutively in the whole history of the sport, right up there near the top. And then you've got Le'Veon Bell, who is the prototype running back of today, where he doesn't just run the ball, which he did last week, 30-something time. What do you have, 35 carries last week or something like that? But they also throw him the ball a lot. So this is a guy who's like, listen, I'm a really good player, and no one's ever going to know it, and I'm going to get to the end of my first deal, and I'm not going to have had the opportunity to show the whole world what I'm capable of.
Okay, join the club of a lot of players. So what now?
But now you have, I think players have the mentality that it used to be, well, there's nothing I can do about that. Right. And now I think the players have the mentality of, I got to get me to a place that I can do that. So I'm just reading this tweet here. Eric Deverick tweets, the Steelers should teach Martavis about karma and trade him to the Browns. I think he'd love to be traded to the Browns.
He would absolutely love to. How about this? You know what? Go and make your case. And you know what Mike Tomlin's going to say? Martavis, listen, you're a piece of this puzzle. We're a good team. We have big goals right now. You're not going to catch as many balls as Antonio Brown. You're not. Right now, as I said, he's the 3rd most targeted guy, but that's slipping. I get it. Behind Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Schuster is starting to come into this offense a little bit more. I'm not trading him. I mean, when you're looking to where you want to go, and this guy has the big play capability, and he can give you maybe a couple of those a game, if maybe, sometimes not, sometimes more. Early in the season, he was giving you more. Why am I trading that?
Oh, I understand that.
So he can have all the attitude he wants. As I said, join the club. There are hundreds of players who are not seeing the playing time that they think they deserve, and who are coming to the end of their contract, who think I could be better off somewhere else. Hundreds, right? Every single year.
But so would you blame them for wanting to go to a different situation?
I'm sure in a private moment, maybe talking with their girlfriend or their wife or their family, maybe that's exactly what they're saying. But then, okay, now what? What do? You go on social media and say you want to leave? You start doing that? Is that what you do? I mean, I don't know. Is that the thing of today? You can go have a discussion, about me being more part of an offense or a defense, depending on the player. But at the end of the day, you can walk out and say, you know what, I don't want to play here anymore, and leave. Okay, and you don't get a paycheck. You can make yourself a pain in the butt to where they can make you inactive, where you still get paid, but you're not playing. Now you're not doing anything. Or if it gets bad enough, you get suspended. If you're being too much of a distraction, then you're not getting paid. I don't know where you want to. I get your point, and I'm telling you there are hundreds of players a year that think that, and they all don't go on social media and say, I want to get out. So what's right, what's wrong? I don't know. I don't think this is the right way, but in this day and age, who knows? I don't know. But I don't think it's going to get him traded, because he still is a viable option, even if it's less times for a team. Trade him away, then Schuster gets hurt.
No, they're not going to trade him.
He's not getting traded.
I understand that.
So he's not alone. He's not singled out of the 1,700 NFL players as, my God, he's the one guy that's being persecuted right now. Let him go somewhere.
He's also not going to get the $30, $40 million guaranteed, and that goes back to the thing that I started by saying that Lewis said it yesterday, can we depend on you? He has not shown himself to be a person that you can depend upon. You can parse the marijuana suspension however you want. You can say you don't believe it should be illegal. You can say you don't believe that the league should test for it. But whatever it is,
they do.
The only thing that matters if you're a team and you're thinking of giving a guy that contract is, can we depend upon you being there every single game?
He's out for a year again.
Because Antonio Brown, whatever headaches he creates, and whether it's Facebook Lives in the locker room or whether it's turning over Gatorade things, he and Marvin Harrison are the only players in history with 100 catches in 4 straight years, and he's on pace for 118 this year. So he's dependable.
Yes, he is.
He can be a pain in the neck, but he is as dependable as it gets.
You can say, man is a pain in the neck, but let's throw him the ball.
Yeah.
And that's how it's worked forever in sports. The better you are, the more leash you get. I've said it for years, and I'll continue to say it because it's true.
I guess what I'd ask is, how good is Martavis Bryant?
I think he's a pretty good receiver, good enough to where the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to trade him.
I guess my answer to it would be, I don't really know. No one really knows because he's always been the other guy on the field.
But we've seen him play. I think he's pretty good.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But how much of that is because the defense is rolling that way? And could Martavis Bryant be the number one receiver on an NFL team? Because if you are the number one receiver on an NFL team, that is worth tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
And right now, the way it's trending, he's never going to get that chance. He will never be that. He will never get that money.
So I understand his was drafted in 2014.
Right.
He doesn't have to wait much longer.
But who's going to give him that money if he's a guy who's coming off a season where he had 31 catches? Do you know what I mean? Like, he wants to go to a place where he'll have 91 catches, and then all of a sudden he's worth a lot of money.
Stand in line.
I get that.
Line.
You're not wrong. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what answer you're looking for from me.
I'm not looking for an answer.
I mean, I don't know what.
I'm trying to say, all these people, I'm looking at a ton of Twitter. This guy needs to shut up and do it for the team. Well, the team not going to do it for him. These teams aren't going to sit around saying, when he gets to the end of his deal, you know what, Martavis, you really are a better player than we needed. So we're going to give you a little more money than your numbers would suggest because we had Antonio. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, these are your numbers, so we're giving you this amount of money. So I understand a guy in his situation feeling a little bit of desperation. That's all I'm saying. Is he handling it wrong? Probably. But I understand.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
And all
is he the only guy in that situation? Obviously
as I said,
not.
multiply it by a couple hundred. So it happens all the time.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, we help keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance. So you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
All right, I've been dreading this all week long since you have decided to make it your personal quest to make Kirk Herbstreit feel unwelcome here.
It's his fault.
So go ahead, set it up as we welcome Kirk Herbstreit in for his regular Wednesday visit. What is your beef with Herbie?
Last week, College Game Day went to Penn State. Penn State and Michigan was playing, but it was also Notre Dame USC as ranked against ranked, and I kind of understood. They were higher-ranked teams with Penn State and Michigan, so I somewhat understood that, even though going to Notre Dame for Notre Dame SC is tough to beat. So be it. So Notre Dame rolls USC, Penn State rolls Michigan. Now Penn State's going to Ohio State. College Game Day's already been there, and they just did Penn State. Notre Dame's playing a ranked North Carolina State team who they play Notre Dame and then Clemson can get right into this thing. What a great time for College Game Day to go to Notre Dame for that one. But Herbie has to step in and say he demanded. I found out behind the scenes he demanded College Game Day go to Ohio State and do the Ohio State-Penn State game, which left Notre Dame out in the cold, which again leaves me out as celebrity picker if they would have chosen me because Herbie wanted the game day at Ohio State.
Herbie, your response.
Wow, you are a beauty. Now, I will admit it would have been a lot of fun last week, anytime Notre Dame and SC get together. What a terrific atmosphere. Congratulations on a huge win. Game day went to Penn State with the whiteout and lived up to it. This week, you have me confused with Lee Fitting, I think, because I have absolutely zero pull on where College Game Day goes. I don't know who your source is. But I go where I'm told, like most of us. But I would love to go to South Bend. In fact, if we went to South Bend, let's just envision this, because if we went to South Bend this week, I would love to be able to have our set there. It's been so long, and I would love to be able to have Mike Golick on our set as our celebrity picker, and I would ask him, Mike Golick, who
do you like in the Notre Dame North Carolina State game? That's all I'd want to know.
It would be so much fun to do.
Well, let's do that. Why don't we do that? Let's have Mike Golick pick the Notre Dame NC State game. Let's do that right now. Let's have the Mike Golick everyone really wants to hear from answer that question. Mike Golick, what do you think?
Notre Dame by 20. Okay, let's move on.
Stand by. You're not the Mike Golick we're talking about. Go ahead.
What's up?
Oh, what is that?
No, they wanted the Mike Golick that they want on the game day set, the one that was actually there playing the last time game day was on South Bend's campus, the one that was actually around during the years that people like to bring back up and talk about when they reminisce fondly about things that went on in South Bend. The bright shining star bursting his way onto the network right here. So, Herbie, happy to come out here and give you a pick, man. Really appreciate you bringing me on to do this. It means a lot.
Well, this is the Mike Golick we would have on the set if College Game Day showed up in South Bend. If we eventually get there, hopefully we'll get there soon, and we would love to have you on the show and give us your thoughts on not just Notre Dame's game, but all the other games that particular Saturday as well.
How do you feel, big fella?
I can't even begin to tell you the amount of people I hate right now. I hate Herbie, and I brought this kid into the world, and I'm about to take him out. There's one standing next to me right here. This is ridiculous what's going on. And by the way, Lee Fitting gave you up because I had him up against the wall ready to punch him in the throat, and he said it was your idea. So, I not like I threatened him or anything. I can't believe my own son, you would come in and sell me out like this.
You know what? Listen, to quote the great Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. I bring this one in to make the pick right here.
Oh, so nice.
Make it very easy. So I would simply, let me show you how to do this, just in case, one day down the road, once I get past it, you take the helmet, you take whichever team you're going to choose would be at Notre Dame, and you'd put that one on. And for us, we get a little bit of this action in here. Last weekend, could I toss one of these down? But, I'll experience it for you. I'll tell you how it is. I'll write it down in your journal. I'll send that home with you. It'd be nice.
Oh, shut up.
All right, let's do Herbie here. And we have a few minutes with him. And then, Mikey, if you can stay, we'll talk to you a little bit as well. But, Herbie, while we do have you, obviously, all kidding aside, and it was nice of you to be in our little gag here, you guys are going to Penn State, Ohio State for College Game Day, which is a huge game in the Big Ten. The winner, what did we say? They have a 97% chance, according to FPI, of taking it to the Big Ten title game where we would expect Wisconsin to be sitting on the other side. So break this matchup down a little bit for us, Herbie, because it's a fascinating one. Saquon on one side, I heard Urban Meyer waxing rhapsodic about him. How do you see this game?
Man, just leaving State College last week, and I just watching Penn State a couple times in person. I had the Iowa game on the road where they got challenged, and then last week. This is a really, really good football team that's incredibly mature and focused. I think that the one thing to remember about this game is not just Saquon Barkley and the Penn State offense. I think Trace McSorley, their quarterback, reminded us last week how important he is to this offense because of his ability to throw the ball downfield. They create so many one-on-one matchups. And then, of course, his ability to complement Saquon Barkley running the football. If you get so caught up, as Michigan learned last week, and taking him away, McSorley will make you pay for it with his feet. So Ohio State, I think the one way Ohio State will try to neutralize all that big playability is got to be their defensive line. Their defensive line's ability to penetrate and get into the backfield could be kind of an equalizer. And like I said, with the home crowd, if Ohio State wins the game, and we talk next week, we're going to be talking a lot about Nick Bosa and the Ohio State defensive line doing that very thing. And on the other side, we just don't know how much Ohio State's improved, guys. They've had better looks in practice than who they played in the last 5 weeks. So they've done what they needed to do against Army and UNLV and Rutgers and whoever else. But let's be honest, the last time we saw them against a good athletic defense was Oklahoma. And some of the same issues they had a year ago with J.T. Barrett holding the ball, receivers not making plays, getting separation, offensive line having problems protecting the quarterback, were on display in that game. So here they go 5 weeks later after going against inferior opponents and looking great. How much have they really improved? It's guessing and speculating. We have no idea until we see them play in this game against a very athletic defense. It's one of the top defenses in the country.
Mike and Herbie brought to you by Allstate. Make sure you check out the Herbstreit and Fitzsimmons podcast this week. They have J.T. Barrett and Bryce Love.
So certainly after all the fun we're having about the Notre Dame, I'll certainly talk about them throughout the rest of the week. But they're playing a North Carolina State team, Herbie, who their quarterback Finley, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. They split up that run and pass pretty well. They beat Notre Dame in the monsoon going on last year. But what an opportunity for them. Let's talk about it from their side of it. They play Notre Dame and then they play Clemson. So within a 2-week span, if they can survive that, do you feel they put themselves right in the mix?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a huge opportunity. What a great story with Dave Doran, their head coach. Was a former defense coordinator years ago with Brett Bielema, head coach of Northern Illinois. Brings that kind of Midwest toughness to this NC State program. He's been building it over the last few years, and now they're kind of reaping the rewards of that kind of foundation that he's been able to lay, and they've had some nice wins. Let's be honest, this is going to be a much different test. I think Notre Dame is a team with their win and the way they beat USC, with the committee coming out with their first rankings on Tuesday of next week. The winner of this game is all of a sudden, especially if Notre Dame wins this game, I cannot wait to see where the committee would have Notre Dame ranked after their win against USC. Think about their only loss to Georgia by a point. They went to East Lansing and won convincingly. They still have big games ahead of them, a trip to Miami, a trip to Stanford. They don't have a conference championship game. Notre Dame becomes a legitimate team in this playoff picture if they get through this game against NC State. NC State's defensive line is as good as there is, very strong, very athletic, very tough. So, to me, the matchup is, you brought up some great points about Finley and his offense, and that'll be a challenge. But really what I can't wait to see is the way Notre Dame is running the football with Adams and Wimbush. Can they establish the run against this defense from NC State, or will Wimbush be put in some obvious passing situations where we really haven't seen him excel in that particular area yet? But I think Notre Dame's for real, man. We're having some fun, you and I, but if they get by this Saturday, look out. They got a real shot.
And again, next week is the week that we get the first CFP rankings. Right. This past week, Herbie's top 4 are Alabama, Penn State, Georgia, and TCU. We'll see if all of those survive this weekend. Herbie, thanks for taking part in this. It was fun. I'm sorry that Golick was all over you all week long.
Whatever.
And we will see you there, see you this weekend for game day. Thanks,
all right,
Herbie.
Fellas, have a great week.
See ya.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha 990. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We do it with Mike Golick Jr. in our studio. We'll do it with Buster Olney live in 15 minutes, bright and early from L.A. Some people tweeting about the game last night. Clayton Kershaw, Jared writes, makes batters look like they couldn't hit a piñata. Rick tweets, not hard to pitch great when the ump gives you ankle high and 3 inches off each corner. I hope Verlander gets that. He'll be unhittable. Well, I have seen a lot about the umpire last night.
Are you saying Keuchel didn't get that if he was throwing in the same spot? I guess that's what I mean, because Keuchel pitched pretty well except for 2 mistakes, 6 hits, 2 home runs. I mean, was he not getting those calls? I mean, that's what you do as a pitcher, right? You figure out where you can throw it. Just like in any sport, you figure out what's happening with those officials. Same in football. How much holding can an offensive lineman get away with before they're going to call it? How much, can you hit a wide receiver past 5 yards before they're going to call it? You figure out what the refs are calling.
Straight Talk Wireless nationwide coverage at America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE network. So again, we'll talk about that with Buster. Quickly, while we have Mike Golick Jr. here, again on the Martavis Bryant situation, I'd said yesterday, and I just saw it from a tweeter, the Chicago Bears are desperate for help at receiver. They have a young quarterback they're trying to develop. They're one of many teams I could see calling up the Steelers and offering something. I don't know exactly what. Could you see something like that happening?
The Buffalo Bills, you look out at them, who not only have been devoid of really a true receiving option there, drafted Zay Jones pretty high, but still have been making their living with Charles Clay as a deep threat in an offense that likes to push it deep. And now without him, that could be a place where it's a very easy landing spot with Tyrod Taylor, there would absolutely be suitors for this, I think. And if you're Pittsburgh and you've got someone who's disgruntled, who may not be working into the plans the way you thought, there could be that idea. But I can see the Pittsburgh side of this. Listen, you've stuck with this guy through 2 suspensions. Yep. You want to believe that you can still get something out of this talent, provided there's some give and take there. Mike Tomlin also says he's liked the process Martavis Bryant has had this year, the way that he's worked. But more and more as I sit here, like, I understand the system doesn't allow him to do something like this. But for Martavis Bryant to try and say, I want to control my own destiny more so than is allowed, I don't think the sentiment is all that disagreeable as much as it is the optics of it aren't necessarily what we're used to and what you and I would be comfortable with doing by any stretch of the imagination.
I would agree with that maybe it's different today, but the bottom line, what Lewis said yesterday, what are other teams seeing? What if Mike Tomlin says, listen, you're going to be here, you're going to be part of this, and then Bryant wants to take it further and be really disgruntled. How is that helping him with the next team? What other team is going to say, oh yeah, I want to trade for that? That problem out there.
No, he's hurting himself. He's not helping himself. He's hurting himself. Louis Riddick was rolling his eyes in here as we were reading the quotes from Josina Anderson yesterday. Okay, well, I have Mikey, because you came in here as a celebrity picker. Let me ask you a couple of quick college football questions. Herbie referred to Ohio State sort of stepping up in class this week. They've won a lot of games against lesser competition since we saw them get drubbed by Oklahoma. Are they ready for Penn State this weekend?
I don't think so. And really, it's because we have no way of knowing. Like Herbie said, and it's wild, I was watching our ranking show last night discussing not the college football playoff rankings, but just the coaches poll and the AP poll. Ohio State's number 6 again out of nowhere, and I feel like we haven't looked at them since that last loss there. But ultimately, I still feel like this is an offense that's not really capable of putting up points with a lot of people on a big stage like this on a team that's a little more well-rounded.
Some of that is because we have a tendency to go back to what we thought before everything began in the first place, which is why a lot of people still question TCU, because they're not the team we expected to be here at this time. Are they one of the legit college football big boys this year?
Yes, because again, going back to what they did on the big stage, looking at Oklahoma State, shutting down that offense the way they did, I think that taught us a lot about TCU. You're right, in a place we weren't ready for.
Didn't Oklahoma State just score very few points against Texas also? Did that change anyone's mind about the performance TCU had against them?
I don't think so, just because we always assumed, again, like talking about what we expected from Texas, ton of talent in the cupboard there for Tom Herman taking it over, just a matter of rattling the cage enough to get it all to go out there and perform the way they wanted. We've seen enough instances of that group.
And TCU plays a ranked Iowa State this week. So.
Right, and Iowa State had just beaten, they beat Oklahoma.
Right.
And then quickly on Notre Dame, it was, as best you can, removing your allegiance from it, when last they were a true national power, you were on the team. Are they on that level right now? Is this football team as good as all the top teams in the country?
I think so. Listen, defensively, personnel-wise, they're not as good to a man, but they've kind of grouped. The most encouraging for me was seeing them generate pass rush in a 4-down setting against USC, and I get that O-line's not full of world beaters. North Carolina State probably a better group, but to see them generate a pass rush, continue to force turnovers. We knew Sam Darnold was going to give them one. They found their way into a couple of others. One was on special teams, but in general, if that group can keep giving this offense extra possession, they dominate the clock.
My biggest worry is if Notre Dame has to pass their way into a game, because the pass works well now off 350 yards rushing a game, but when they have to pass themselves and throw into a game, that's when I think it's truly a test for them.
All right, we shall see. A very good job done today by Mike Golick Jr., the celebrity picker. If we had the opportunity.
One day, Dad, one day.
Weekend.
You're grounded.
I'll go back to my house.
Buster Olney, bright and early, live in L.A. off Game 1 of the World Series, joins us live next. Stay there, Mike and Mike.
Go to your room in your house.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15%.